Hey everybody, welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. Here I have a very special guest, host of the Kim Iverson Show. Kim Iverson, how you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me on. I'm great.
So I wanted to get, because I love talking to like indie media progressives, and you just started doing your show like 2 months ago.
Yeah,
Uh,
2 months ago. Just the 11th was the two month anniversary.
and your show's blown up in a short amount of time, which I think is fantastic. And so why don't you tell us, you because you've worked in broadcasting for a long time, like what got you to the place of deciding to start talking about independent media and just basically going for the truth?
Well, it wasn't an easy decision, that's for sure. So yeah, I came out of radio. I was a radio talk show host pretty much, well, since I graduated from college. I got into radio broadcasting, moved all around the country. So I started off in Sacramento, went to New York, went to Indiana and Illinois and Texas, and the life of a media broadcaster. That's the way it works. You're just picking up call signs. Um, and I decided, my show actually had done really well. I actually was really, I was fortunate in my radio career to, for one, as a female, to lead my own show, which was very rare in radio. It's still very dominated by men. And so I was really lucky about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I got a break to host my very own show. That show ended up going national, and it was a nationally syndicated um, show that was on in 25 different cities across the country. So like Denver, Indianapolis, Austin, Texas, Nashville. So it was, um, and then I moved to another company. I went to iHeart and I was with them for a while. And that show was also a syndicated show that was in 25 different cities like Chicago and Philly. And so,
Now, was this were these
I
talk
just,
shows, were you talking news, or what was the content basically that you were talking about on?
no, yeah, good question. Sorry, I didn't clarify that. I was talking about sex and relationships, to be honest with you. So what happened was I was in music radio. So I was doing morning shows on music, kind of like top 40. We call them hot AC stations. So these are stations that play like John Mayer and Taylor Swift, right? So and Rihanna and Lady Gaga, but you're getting a little bit of the softer stuff and not so much of the total pop stuff. So I was doing morning shows on these hot AC stations, and then I moved to nights on the hot AC station. So I was on these music stations, but actually the music stations shut down the music at night and just let me do a talk show. And what I did was very similar to, if you're familiar with Loveline.
Yeah.
So yeah, with like Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla, that's when it was at the height of it. And they switched various different hosts out. Adam left and other guys stepped in, and Drew Pinsky was always there. And my show was very much like Loveline, but for women. So women would call in, men and women actually would all call into the show, and they would ask me for relationship advice. And I was just known. I mean, I'm not a relationship expert. At this point, that's debatable because I spent so much of my career studying it and reading books and talking to experts that experts at towards the end were like, well, you're an expert. And I'm like, I guess, just because I've talked to thousands of people about their relationship problems. So I was just really giving people relationship advice and talking a lot about news, doing news, but news that related to women. So news topics that were, if they related to women's lives in some way, then I would talk about that, but nothing political ever. And yeah, then I just kind of got sick of it. Honestly, I was doing that type of talk for 10 years, and I felt like, where am I going with this? I mean, am I going to keep being this relationship and sex talk person and I would show up to work and I would yak my producer's ears off about politics, and I wouldn't shut up about politics. And then they're like, okay, we're going live now. So 3, 2, 1, stop talking politics, and I'd have to switch gears and, go into okay, tell me all your problems. And I was known as the person who just told you like it was. So you'd call into my show and I wasn't going to sugarcoat it. I was just your friend that was going to be telling you exactly what's up with what your friends are thinking, but they're not saying because they want to keep your friendship. my job was to say what everyone's thinking. So, yeah, I just got sick of it, and I realized I really do need to go and talk about something I'm passionate about, which would be politics and news. I did start off, I should say, in my radio career doing news.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what I was originally doing. And then I thought it was really boring and I left, and I thought music radio would be more fun. And it was. I mean, it was. You just like interview rock stars all the time and go to tons of concerts and, talk about sex and relationships. It was a great life. But yeah, so I left 2 years ago, and to be honest with you, I didn't start thinking about independent media. Really, I knew digital was the future for sure. And I was hesitant to go back into regular old broadcasting because I don't know how long that's going to last. Even now, I watch CNN and MSNBC. I'm like, you guys are dinosaurs. You're on your way out, right? But in all honesty, I wasn't a progressive at that time. I also wasn't really a mainstream Democrat. I didn't know. I was just your average person who cared, but who didn't really know the difference really between a progressive or a mainstream Dem or a neoliberal or anything, right? Like I was like anybody who had a life, who was very busy, who would just turn on mainstream news or go onto mainstream websites. And I was just consuming what was thrown at me, and I'd have an opinion on it like anybody and everybody on Twitter, and that's where I was at. Now, my dad, on the other hand, is a hardcore progressive, and he has been since the dawn of time, basically. My dad was a hippie that protested the Vietnam War. He married my mom, who was a Vietnamese refugee. Sometimes I wonder if the reason he did that was like to just like help. I don't know, because they weren't very well matched. They didn't speak the same language anyway. Sorry, Dad. Sorry. He's going to see this. Sorry. My dad is a really big progressive. So when I would call him and talk to him on the phone, he would like go on and on and on about the truth of what's going on, and Hillary Clinton's terrible. And, he would just really, and my dad is like a really quiet artist guy and really didn't ever get fired up about anything. But boy, did he get fired up during the 2016 election. I mean, he was like, Bernie was cheated and Hillary Clinton's the devil and I'm never voting for her. And I just was like your average person who was like, what? But Trump is way worse. And oh my gosh, like, we got into big fights about it and all this. But I got to say, and this is for everyone out there who's a progressive and you've got people in your life who are not, the more you talk to them, and like it does work. It does eventually work.
Yeah.
They'll fight it, but it works.
No, I totally agree with that. And I think that's the thing. I've talked a lot. I've been doing this show for 2 years, and I talk to people. I just talk facts. I mean, I was working at this club in Chicago 2 weeks ago, and I was in the green room with these comics that are all just like, yeah, Trump's bad. They voted for Obama. And I just started laying down facts. I don't delve in any conspiracies. I'm just like, Obama took us from 2 wars to 7. He let 5.2 million foreclosures happen. He dropped 26,171 bombs in 2016 alone. And everyone in the room just got quiet. And they're all just like, I voted for the guy twice. I worked on his campaign. I go, and one guy's like, no, he just inherited Bush's economic problem. I said, yes, he did. But then he contributed an additional $700 billion in stimulus money. He goes, oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, I know you didn't know that because MSNBC is not going to tell you that.
Yeah.
And it just, they all started kind of, and one guy was just sitting there writing, and I thought he wasn't paying attention to me. And he was just, when I was done, he was like, so wait, what was that book? Chris Hedges, Death of the Liberal Class? And then he was like, what's that? OpenSecrets.org? And I was like, yep. And I go read Chain of Title. And that's how you wake people up.
Right. It is slow, and people will be resistant, of course, because people don't like change, and they don't like to hear things that they're not used to hearing. And they start to think that it's, crazy talk. And I even said things to my dad like, you're wearing your tinfoil hat again. Like, here you go, but he slowly did convert me. And the way he did it was, he just kept talking about it and talking about it. And then I ultimately did my own research. I ultimately was like, oh, right. Okay. Because my dad cares about this so much, I need to look into this and really see what's going on, and we'll see. And a lot of it in the beginning, I think I was looking into it to try to prove him wrong a little bit. But also, I decided I was going to go into I didn't know what I was going to do. I left my radio show and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I know I want to talk politics, but I didn't know where I fit in. And so what I knew I needed to do was kind of take a step back. I tried doing a digital show that no one watched. So I've had a lot of success these 2 months. But the first time I tried, nobody cared. I had like 10 people watching a video, all friends and family. And I was still trying to get my bearings together. And when I was doing this show that I first started, I was parroting the mainstream lines, and I didn't even believe it myself. I mean, I sat there and I would like try to get into the outrage and, the outrage machine about whatever the outrages of the day. And I would try to do a video on it. And I honestly would be like, I don't even believe this. Like, I'm not passionate about this. My audience is going to call bullshit right away because they know that I tell it like it is, and they can tell when I'm lying. Not that I was lying, but I just really was trying to put shows together, and then I would try to put content out there, and I'd be like, I don't know, like I'm kind of, and then I wondered, I was like, maybe I'm a right winger. Like I had these moments where I was like, because I don't agree with this, like what's going on? Like, am I a right winger and I don't even know? I was going through an existential crisis. I really was. So my solution was to just remain silent for a long time, was to just shut down. And everybody would be around me saying, well, you got to get your career back. You've got to be making videos. You got to be doing this. And I'm like, I don't know what to talk about. So I'm not going to talk until I know what to talk about, because I don't know where I belong anymore. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I know I don't really agree with this left-wing narrative and this like social justice outrage all the time. It's like pick something new every day, and that's what they're going to be mad about. And then, my dad was saying things to me, and I was like, I don't even know what's going on there. Like, you're talking about all these DNC conspiracies and, things that seem crazy to me over here. So I just felt really lost. And I think a lot of people feel this way, where you're just like.
Well, I think that's what resonates people with YouTube, because people watch MSNBC or Fox, and like this isn't right, and then I think that's why so many shows, people come to YouTube, because they're just like, I know I'm being lied to over here. I just know it, and you just start to realize that like Sean Hannity and Rachel Maddow are just professional wrestling characters that are just
right.
She's just the diversity of the ruling class. That's all she is. She pushes the war machine narrative.
Right.
And the ruling class can go, oh, see, women, gay women, but who push our corporate nonsense. I mean, she literally does segments that are sponsored by Boeing, and you can't,
right.
You can't turn your brain off to that.
Right. So yeah, after I started a business with a co-founder. We started a startup called The Left, and we went and got theleft.com. And we were trying to do a digital media, because I stopped doing shows. I was like, all right, I just need to go off the air for a while. I need to learn. Like, clearly I need to learn, and I don't even know where I belong right now. So we started The Left, and we wanted to start a newsletter and podcast. It took us forever. We didn't launch anything for a year. So there was like a year of research and downtime. And during that year, I was like, the challenge is that my partner and I definitely didn't agree on almost anything when it came to politics, but he was definitely a liberal. And he would say to me sometimes, like, I think you might be a right winger. I think you might be like, I don't know, you say things. And as a progressive, we get accused of this a lot, right? People are always like saying we're on the alt-right or something crazy, or I don't even know. But that's when I realized, through this kind of 2 years of learning and just figuring and feeling like I don't know where I belong, that's when I realized on my own, I kind of stopped talking to my dad about politics because it was just, we would fight too much. And I started realizing that I was actually a total progressive. I just didn't know it. And I didn't know what a progressive really was. And then the more I started learning, I was like, oh my, I'm a progressive. And I started realizing that when I would come up with my own opinions and I would put it out there on Twitter or something, and then I would find out, oh, Jimmy Dore agreed, that was his take too. And oh, that was Kyle Kalinski's take. And it was like 95% of the time, always exactly the same take as what I had come up with in my own, in my own mind. And then I was like, okay, well, now I know I'm not a right winger. Thank God.
Yeah.
I'm a progressive. Oh, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand fully. And then, so then I decided, I'm going to go for it. Then it was really scary. Even then, like once I realized, oh my God, I'm a progressive, then it was worse almost for me because I thought, shit, like now I'm never going to get him. I spent all my life in broadcasting, in corporate broadcasting. So like now what is going to happen to me? I mean, my agent's talking to me about maybe joining MSNBC. And, I've got all these like people wanting me to go into big mainstream media and opportunities to go into mainstream media. But now what? Like, they're never going to accept me, and I'm never going to be able to not lie. I'm not going to be able to lie. It won't be genuine coming out of my mouth, just the way I am.
I lost work from doing this. I lost work from my Twitter feed 2 years ago.
Really?
Oh yeah. I had been hired because I've been a stand-up comic for forever. I have a movie review podcast. We published a book. I've directed it. I directed a documentary about podcasting. I used to host game shows, and this producer saw me at the Hollywood Improv 2 years ago, and he's like, Graham, he worked for this big movie review, I won't say their name, but this big movie review company that's owned by another massive, one of the 5 multinational conglomerates that own 95% of all media. And I was hired on the spot. I mean, he was just like, you're the guy. We're doing this movie review game show. We're going to do it at Comic-Con. And we just started he goes, and it was a couple months out, and he was like, and we started shaping the show, like what it was going to be. And I had a general meeting with the big online content people, and everyone's like, oh, wow. And then he calls me and a couple weeks later, maybe 3 weeks later, and we're all set. Like, it's done. This is the money, my agent, we got the everything. And
yeah,
he's like, oh, sorry, man, somebody saw your Twitter feed. And I was like, what? And my Twitter feed was not like all caps, fuck Trump. It was calling out California state Democrats who were actively blocking single-payer healthcare. And I was like, Anthony Rendon, you just sold us out. No swearing, no threat, just you. These are the corporate Democrats that get money from the healthcare industry. And I was fired for that. And I was like, I had to make a decision. Am I going to like go back and hope the traditional media gives me more TV shows? Or am I going to just say, suck it, because I can't lie. I can't do it. I cannot. After what I've gone through, losing my house and watching this bullshit 2-party system. And you have to make that decision. If you have made your money in traditional media, you have to come to that fork in the road because you can't turn back.
Right. You can't. Right. Yeah. Once you make that choice, you've made that choice. Yeah. And it is really scary when you are like you and me, where this has been our careers. I mean, it's all I've known is corporate media. So, and I had a successful career in it, as you did. And it's just like, luckily, so my dad, the big progressive, right? So he was with me he's been with me these last 6 months. And, we had long conversations about this. My dad's a big progressive. So he, of course, morally, intellectually, this is the path he wanted me to go down. But also, he also has seen my entire career and what I would be walking away from. And even he was kind of like, I mean, that's a really, really tough thing because that's a big career to walk away from and, guaranteed money and in some cases, a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But finally, it was in January, which is when I launched the show. And my startup that I had done with my partner was like not going well, mainly because we'd kind of come to a point where we're like, okay, we're going to try to, because him and I realized we didn't agree politically very much. So we were like, we're just going to have to try to appease everybody somehow. Like the mainstream and the progressives, we're going to have to try to like create a narrative. So that's why we called it the left. And we were like trying to just be the left. But when you go down that road, you can't, you're kind of bound to fail because you can't, I mean, who cares, right? You're not playing to one side.
Mm-hmm.
If the one side wants to be all about social justice stuff, outrage all the time, and then progressives, like we're outraged about something totally different. So I guess there's some that are both, but yeah, when I realized, okay, my startup's not going to go any further. And I was in talks with radio again to potentially go back into mainstream radio. And even a couple of the biggest, the presidents of the biggest radio companies, they were reaching out to me saying, you want to come back? You've been gone for 2 years. And honestly, I took a few days of silence and thinking and being scared about where my future would lead. And I said, I'm going to trust my gut. I'm going to trust my gut. And my gut is telling me that I'm going to speak the truth. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm not going to hide. And this means I'm going to give up a lot, but maybe everything. But and that's scary. And I just went for it. I just said, this is it. I'm just going to do it. I've got to do what I think is right. At the end of the day, if I die broke, but I die at least knowing that I spoke the truth and that I did what was right, like that's the way to live your life, to go down knowing that you at least fought for something you believed in.
That's a moment of pure, I think that's like, for me, that's like, and I think that's everyone I've ever spoke to, and when I've talked to anyone in indie media, Tim Black, Lee Camp, Abby Martin, Jimmy, I've known Jimmy for years, Ron Placone, they're all just like Steph Zamorano. Everybody had that moment at one time or another where they just went, nah, this ain't right. So I can't live with myself. I couldn't look myself in the mirror if I was taking Rachel Maddow money saying that bullshit.
Right. Right. I mean, it's still part of me hopes that mainstream media will change, like I'm still like, well, maybe they'll change, there's still hope. Maybe in 5-10 years, they'll go progressive, who knows? Like, and then maybe I can go and get a job when these guys decide, I don't know, when these guys decide that they want to like change their tune and actually do what the American people want, like actually be, actually give news that people want rather than parroting what,
Mm-hmm.
But that would be really difficult because they do have advertisers. And
yeah, there it is. Therein lies the problem. Because when the oil companies and big pharmaceutical buy ad time.
Yeah. And that is, and I faced that even in my broadcasting career where the problem with mainstream corporate media is that when an advertiser pulls, they usually don't just threaten your show, right? They're threatening the whole shebang. So the corporation, because no one ever told me what to say, I never really experienced the whole like, oh, you become a parrot for them. It wasn't really like that, but I definitely knew which lines not to cross. I knew not to step on certain advertisers. I wasn't going to talk shit about McDonald's, right? Like, I knew where not to cross. They never had to tell me. It was
that's just an
like,
unwritten
these
law.
are your advertisers.
You know that in traditional media. These are the advertisers. You can't say anything bad about them, and that's just the rule that the game everyone has to play. But I gotta wrap up here because Ron and I are about to do a show in New Orleans. But I want to ask you this final question. Now that you've taken this plunge and you made this decision, you had that existential crisis, and now you're covering stuff and sort of you're in the Matrix. You're seeing the reality.
Yes, I am.
How do you stay sane? How do you, because I ask myself this every day, and I always like asking indie media people, once you start really paying attention, how do you cover this? You make videos every day. How do you get these stories and see what's really happening and then not go bananas yourself?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not I wouldn't say that it's so much going crazy as much as losing hope.
Hmm.
It's hard to stay hopeful that we're going to be able to dig out of this. I just look at what's really going on and I think this is a behemoth
Mm-hmm.
and we're just the little guy. I mean, I don't know how we're going to turn this around. The only thing I can think of, and I know people get mad at me about me taking this stance, but I will withhold my vote. I will not vote for a mainstream establishment Democrat. That's the only power I've got. So the only thing I can do is say, yes, if that, I know what that means. I understand the consequences of refusing to vote for this mainstream Democrat. I understand who will win and who will remain in office or whatever. I understand the implications, but we're dealing with a behemoth. And it is way greater than this one administration. This is massive. And the only thing that we can do is say no. And you have to change. You have to change. And if you don't change, I will let you lose and I will let you lose and I will let you lose like a really spoiled, rotten little kid that I have to ground over and over and over again because you keep making bad decisions. Like, this is for your own good because I'm worried about you. I'm worried about me. Like, I'm worried that you're going to go down this dark path of like drug addiction and you're going to end up dead, right? Um, it's taking that hard line and saying, but it is hard because I worry that for me, it's more about losing hope. And that's the only thing I can think of is I just keep thinking at the end of the day, I can withhold my vote. And if I scream about this loud enough and get a big enough audience on board with this, then they will change. They'll have to, otherwise they'll keep losing and they don't want to keep losing.
Yep.
But I don't know. But then the behemoth goes and I'm thinking, but then what about the money and how are they ever going to give up the money? And I don't.
Yeah,
Goes
it's a
on and
valid
on.
thing because I feel the same way. I'm never voting. I'm never voting for the lesser two evils ever in my life. I'll write myself in. I'll vote for
Right.
third party. I don't care. I will not give them. I will not. If Kamala Harris or Joe Biden get the nomination, they won't get my vote. It's that simple. They have to earn my vote. I know it's
Yeah.
this crazy concept. The Democratic Party has to earn votes with candidates
Right.
and platforms and not just like, you're left of center. We own it. Um, but
Well, but then we get blamed, right? We're like,
fuck
you gave
them.
us Trump.
No,
Yeah.
they gave us Trump. I don't. I'm tired of
Right. It's like
explaining to
I
you.
didn't vote for him.
I didn't vote for him. You ran a shitty. Hillary ran the worst campaign of anyone I've ever seen in my entire life. I didn't block her from going to Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania. Me and a bunch of burn bros and Putin didn't stand on the Wisconsin border and prevent her motorcade from going there. She arrogantly didn't go. She went to big donor
Yeah, I'm
lunches
hoping this
and.
time around.
But
I'm
anyway,
just hoping we're not in that position this time around. I'm hoping that, we get a good candidate and we don't have to make that choice.
we'll see. There's still super delegates. I hope. I hope. I hope. But so, Kim, where can people find you online and follow your show if they're new to you? Where can people watch your stuff?
KimIversonShow.com. So however you want to spell it, it'll get you there. Because my last name is spelled Iversen and not son. But, I bought all of the domains so that there's no confusion. So if you just type in Kim Iverson Show, then you'll get to my YouTube channel and you'll be able to start watching the videos and subscribe.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking your
Yeah.
time out of your day for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me on. I mean, this is just so great. Thank
Awesome.
you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share the videos, go to the Patreon, and we've got more Progressive Comedy Tour dates coming up. So go to grahamelwood.com for all of the tour dates. And, keep being political vigilantes yourself. Thanks for watching.